Welcome to another episode of What's Happening Now with Laura. An eye for an eye will only make the whole world blind. Mahatma Gandhi. Violence is the last resort of the incompetent. Isaac Asimov. Those who make peaceful resolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. JFK. Poverty is the worst form of violence. Mahatma Gandhi. I'm certain that some of you, if not all of us, have heard one or more of these phrases before in the past, come across it at our nearest watering holes, or just in conversation with one another, listening to documentaries and the like. Why am I bringing those phrases or these adages up? Why am I saying those things? Well, I think it was only inevitable before babes picked up arms. I am certain most of you, if not all of you, have heard of the latest slaying, perhaps not fatal, but slaying nonetheless, that occurred in St. Lucia over the weekend, where a 5-year-old babe cutlassed his 9-year-old brother. And at first, the news circulating was that it was over a piece of chicken. Come to find out a little later on that perhaps it was not over a piece of chicken, but rather the whole chicken. But whatever caused a 5-year-old baby to pick up a cutlass and slash his older brother in the head is of inconsequence. The story is not, or what precipitated the act itself is not what is at hand, but rather that it actually happened. Yesterday, in listening to the DBS News, the segment called Street Vibes, the host posed the question, what would cause or what would prohibit children from becoming violent? And almost to a T, as if everyone were singing from the same hymnal, the answers varied very little. Persons called on God, people that put it on lack of respect for elders, lack of spirituality. Don't let me tell you. Listen for yourself. The Street Vibe clip, is it ready? Okay, maybe it's not quite ready yet, but we'll come back to it. Street Vibes. So it's ready now, the Street Vibes clip. Yes. So let's listen to what we as a society think of the situation at hand.
Hi, I'm Don Nicholas, and this is Street Vibes. Today, the people speak on the subject, what can parents do to prevent their children from becoming violent?
First of all, I would say the first thing, if I remember when I was growing up, I was introduced to God. And then even if I wanted to go to church, I ended up loving going to church because when I grew, I was taught morals and values. Nowadays, a lot of people don't have morals. I'm a teacher, and you see it every day. The children don't have respect for adults. They have no morals. They have no values. So at the end of the day, they are left to fight for themselves to survive. So in that way, I think if parents try to instill morals and values into the young children, I think there can be a change in the way children behave generally.
Teach them from small, respect adults, have respect for old people, help whoever need helping, and always do their homework when they give them homework from school.
Read and study the Bible with them and pray with them.
I believe, first of all, that parents need to teach their children spiritual upliftment, how to conduct themselves spiritually. Because if the church back in the days was the main focus, now we should have the main focus as a church. And parents need to teach their children conflict resolution, because these are the things. Even the schools have to teach children on conflict resolution, because people has not learned how to settle the matters without a fight, without going to court. So I believe that the church need to play a role, and the schools need to play a better role in teaching the children conflict resolutions.
Home training, right, is number one, right? Parents must put their children to sit down, as the old people would say, and instruct them, right?
Yes, so we heard morals and values. Respect adults and old people. Read and study the Bible. Teach them spirituality. The church must be the main focus. Conflict resolution at schools and in home. Home training. But I ponder and I ask myself the question, who would be doing the training? Who would be teaching the spirituality? Who would be teaching the respect, especially the respect towards adults and old people? The morals and values that we're talking, we always like to tout morals and values, respect for our elders. But aren't the very same elders that we are supposed to be respecting the ones denigrating, browbeating, crushing the will of young people in order to get them to submit, in order to get them to fear? What adults teach in this country that is supposed to pass for respect is not respect. It's not discipline. It's abuse. Yes, it is abuse. When you will take a child and fling a child across a room, now they feel vomissant. These are the things that we grew up hearing adults say to their children. Last week I viewed a video. It was so gruesome. It was so... I'm not even sure the words to use. I'm still contemplating whether I should play that video to you. I mean, it makes you wonder, where do we get this anxiety? Where do we get this anger from? It is from the very same adults who expect young people to respect them. The very same adults who can't respect themselves. I watched a video of a young girl decimating another young girl. I mean, this girl could have been brutalized. This girl could have been disfigured. You know, having your face raked across a galvanized sheet. It's a wonder blood was not shed on that day. But you know what was even more disturbing? What was more disturbing, it's not the fact, it's not so much the fact that two girls were fighting for whatever reason. I mean, it's been happening since they be jabbed it in my mind, in other words, as the old people or the older folk would say. It's the fact that it was glorified and it was made so much something of a mockery, you know, and instead of denouncing, it was made some sort of comedy. And I know we are supposed to find the humor in the everyday things, otherwise we go insane. But my God, when have we become so desensitized to things to the point where it's light, you know? The incident didn't happen 5 seconds ago, and it's all over Facebook, it's all over the media, it's all over the world. If you are as sensitive as I am, the clip that I'm going to play next, I would ask you to caution because it's very, very graphic. Very, very graphic. And even though some of us may not have sisters or aunts, we may not have known our grandparents, our grandmothers, we all have a mother. And when you're watching this video, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of your mother, whether you're male or female. Have a look. I highly doubt that this was this girl's brother, certainly not her father. And you could see in the video that there were people around. And these people weren't trying to help her. They weren't appalled that a man born of a woman was treating a woman this way. A human being this way. You heard the narrative. You heard the expletives being used. I don't know the backstory, and I don't care to know. What is important is that a man, a person, is treating another human being like that. Now, if you could do this to a woman, and I'm assuming here that they're in a relationship, and you claim to love this woman, and this is how you're treating her, I wouldn't want to see how you're going to treat a child in your care who isn't of your flesh and blood. Do you remember a little boy by the name of Millian Ferdinand? Lost his life at the hands of his father and stepmother. When you look at this, do you wonder how it is that little Millian never stood a chance? This is a grown woman. And there is this guy who's treating her like this. And here we are, standing around, not defending her, regardless of whatever indiscretion she may have engaged herself in, regardless of whatever dispute that they may be having. You don't treat a person like this. Children view this. Children are within sight of this happening. Is it any wonder that our children behave the way they do? Is it any wonder, are you even surprised that a little 5-year-old baby boy would take a machete and slash his older brother in the head with it over a chicken? Really? And no matter what the situation may be, there is no reason in the world where a little boy has to resort to that kind of angst, that kind of treatment toward another person. Now, I know some of you are saying, poor parenting. Where is the mother? Why was she sleeping? You know? But more importantly, what is that child being exposed to? I remember on a Sunday in particular, There were times we didn't want to have our afternoon siesta. Now on an afternoon, boy, I wish I could get my little afternoon siesta. So I wish I had appreciated those Sunday afternoon siestas. On a Sunday afternoon in my household, everybody goes to sleep at around 3 o'clock. Not because niggeritis or whatever you may call it, but because it was just the norm. My parents worked long hours. We chipped in. We as children, we chipped in. So on Sundays, we all took a nap together. And there were times, plenty of times, we, the children, woke up before our parents. So we always went to bed for like 2 hours. We took a nap for about 2 hours. And there were times we got up before the 5 o'clock mark. Our parents were never scared that we would have gotten into trouble with each other. They were never scared that one of us would pick up a knife and slash the other because we got so angry with them. It never even occurred to us that we could have gotten into mischief. Never occurred to us. We weren't exposed to these kinds of things. Up to a day like today, actually. It's a running joke amongst my circle. I was 16 years old. 16 years old before I was permitted by my parents to watch any program, movie, or serial on television that involved any sort of French kissing. Seriously, I was 16 years old before I was permitted to view anything like that. This is the kind of parental control that our parents exercised in my home. It never occurred. We were exposed. We were exposed to cigarettes and alcohol. It was there. It never dawned on us to pick up a cigarette and smoke it, to take alcohol from the cupboards from our parents' stash and drink it. No, it never occurred to us, but it was there in the home. Never occurred to us. Why? Because from an early age, we knew that did not belong to us. Kids, we had our own drinks, our own foods, our own things that we could get engaged in, our own games. And there were things that adults partook of that we weren't permitted. And that was okay with us because we understood there's a role for children and there was a role for adults. I say to my friends all the time, my greatest discipline was not the lashes that I got as a kid. Wasn't you taking away things that I wanted from me. It was the disappointment in my parents' eyes, particularly my mom, when I did something that I was not supposed to have done, and they were disappointed in me for knowing better and for doing otherwise anyway. The disappointment in their eyes got me every time. Growing up, a little later on, in my early 20s, my late teens and my early 20s, that shifted to my father. But when I was a child, it was more my mother. Daddy was always, as a child, as a little girl growing up, was always the fun one, was always, the one that was always playing with us. And so, but mom was the disciplinarian. But that shifted a little bit once we became older, a little bit older, and became teenagers. But regardless, the disappointment in their faces got me every time, moved me to tears every time, more than any strokes or any time out or any punishment. You can't go there, you can't do this, you can't have this. Yeah, I felt it for a little bit. After 5 minutes, you find yourself engaged in something else. But the disappointment in my parents' face, that lasted a lifetime, or at least to a little girl, it seemed like a lifetime. But children nowadays do not have those expectations. There's no expectation for them to be the best that they can be. Most of our children are left to fend for themselves. We do not censure what we say around children. We use any kind of foul language whatsoever, and heaven forbid, somebody should caution and say, I don't think this is appropriate language around children. Oh my goodness. I recall one day coming from the church. For those of you who know Labrie very well, would know coming down from the Catholic Church, down that bridge. I was driving down, and there was this guy intoxicated to the gills, swearing and getting on and saying words I had never heard before. And right next door to where he was were 5 little children. And I said to him, hey, come on, there are children around. Watch what you're saying. Oh my God. I could not leave this place fast enough. Because this venomous, vile individual turned all of his venom and his hate towards himself on me and started calling me some of the vilest, hideous names ever. I thought I'd heard it all. This man, you've heard the saying, cursing like a sailor. That guy made any sailor blush that day, let me just tell you. Afterward, later on, a few days had passed. I guess somebody must have told him what he said and to whom he was saying. And he sought me out and apologized. And just as I was about to accept the apology, he said something that stopped me in the tracks. Si moi te sav se ou, moi so te jamais dit ce mot ça là. That's what he said. Si moi te sav se ou, te ka parler ba moi so ça jamais dit ce mot ça là. And it said to me, because of who I am, because of who my family is in the community, because of what I do in the media, in the community, I would have been afforded a certain respect that somebody else would not have been afforded. And that stopped me and turned my blood cold. And I had to stop and I had to say to this young man, because he's younger than I am, I still consider myself young, and I had to say to him, it shouldn't matter who was trying to correct you. The fact of the matter is, somebody cared enough to stop you from humiliating yourself and disrespecting the future of our community and by extension, our country. Somebody was trying to make you into a better person. And you did not think twice about cussing that person off. It shouldn't matter who was doing it. It shouldn't matter. All you should have been focused on is, wait a minute, that person cares. I said, I don't need your apology. You know who I want you to apologize to? The little children who were there hearing what you were saying. Not nice. They heard and they can never unhear. So the next time that they're in an argument with their friends, guess what some of the expletives, what of the words that would be coming out of their little mouths? Those very same words that you used to me. So while we say, teach them respect for elders and older people, it begs the question, do older people respect themselves? Do they respect one another? Are they cautious of? I mean, there's always a case. There's always a time. We are not saints. I'm not being hypocritical here. I have sworn. I have cursed in my life. And I dare say I probably curse again. I am not a saint. But the bigger question is, the issue at hand is, do we take the time to look around us? Do we stop to think about what we're saying, to whom we're saying it, who is around when we're saying it, who could be impacted? What are the sponges? Where are the sponges that could just soak up what we're saying? Over the holidays, my little nephew flipped the bird, you know, the bird, yeah? To an older cousin. And he could have totally flipped, but he stopped him and he says, never. Do you know what that means? Do you know what the connotation of it is? Do you know why it is taboo? And we sat with him and we found out that it was another little boy in his school, well, several of them, who do it to each other. And I asked him, did he know what it meant? And he said, yes, he's not sure, but he thinks that's what it is, because every time the boys do it in school, the teacher comes and the teacher tells them, punishes them, so he figures it's a bad thing. So why are you using it? Well, it just seemed cool at the time. Needless to say, he will never do it again. I can guarantee you of that. But when we stopped and we thought about it, the kids who were doing this, I was not surprised that they were doing it, because I know their backstory and I know their home life. So when parents say, "Mate leave it sima my makosa, ma leave it sima my makosa," hello. When you're walking down the street and somebody tells you your skirt too short or this or that, you could be doing something better, and you flip them the bird, you're teaching you, and your children are walking next to you, you're teaching your children. When somebody tells you something that you're not in agreement with, and the first thing that you say that comes out of your mouth is the juking spoon, and your children are walking beside you, you're teaching that to them. And when you're at a sporting event, cricket for instance, and it hits for 6, and you say the national word, and your children are seated next to you, you're teaching that to them as well. And when you parade and you do all sorts of things that adults do that children ought not to be privy to in their presence, knowing full well that the bedroom is in the lassel, is in the tweezing, and you do it anyway, knowing that they're not quite asleep yet, because your basic needs, your base needs need to be met. You're teaching that to them as well. And when you allow a man to denigrate you to the point that this young lady was denigrated in that video we showed earlier, and your little girl children are around, you're teaching that to them. And when your little boys see that, that's what you're teaching them as well. You're telling them, mommy is worthless. She has no value. I can go out there and do it to somebody else, but guess what? You will do it to the wrong person, and you will catch a case. And then, that will be another can of worms. We have heard all the time, especially especially during the silly season. This one is a divisive leader, the most divisive leader ever. Ever. It was said of Sir John. It was said of Kenny. It is being said of Alan. Most divisive leader ever. Pip, most divisive leader there never was. All we need to do is to remember some of the hate speeches that they spew. And some of you will say, it's not hate speech. Yeah, it is hate speech. When you say there will be no peace, you're inciting war. Don't forget what I read to you earlier. Yeah? What I read to you earlier about those who make peaceful resolution impossible will make violent resolution inevitable. John F. Kennedy. 1962 or thereabouts, I think, some way decades ago, he said so. And it is still true today. Those who make peaceful resolution impossible will make violent resolution inevitable. Over my dead body. What are we talking about? That's hate speech, whether we want to admit it or not. You know? We want to talk about divisive. The man that we venerate, most of us, at some point, one point or another, when it suits our purposes, Sir John, he talked about division in his career as a politician, as a prime minister. I think it was in 1987 where he said, and somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong, of the year, but he said on a platform, you know, he's been accused of taking care of them at the expense of his supporters, them as opposed to us. That's what he said. I have been accused of taking care of them as opposed to us. Well, now I'm going to take care of us. That's what he said. Isn't that ruling by division? Isn't that ruling by division? I would say it is. But we've all have partaken of that. So let's not be hypocritical and think that one is more than the other, although some use more colorful language. Yeah? Though some of us use more colorful language. But the fact of the matter is, if we are not prepared to sit down and mediate and go at things peacefully, what we're clamoring for, what our rallying cry is for, war. That's what we're doing. And so, it should be no stretch of the imagination. Shouldn't be a surprise to any of us whatsoever when a baby picks up a cutlass and slashes his brother. Used to be taboo to think of two brothers fighting, fisticuffs. They're fighting and we're like, oh my God, so se fue, professor, so come lel me a family, and so on and so forth. In recent times, I can count at least 5 incidents in St. Lucia where brother have slain fatally brother. And this on Sunday, what happened on Sunday, could have been another case where brother fatally slew brother. People, we need to rise above that. We need to rise above that. We need to move on. Last year was a bumper year for murder in this country. And that is not those two words, murder and bumper, are not two words that we want to put together at all. When we say you've had a bumper year of something, it means bountiful. It means full of abundance. We don't want to think of murder in abundance. We don't want to think of bountiful murder. We want to think of it in the most minuscule form, as minuscule a form as possible. Nano even. When are we going to wake up? When are we going to say, no, let me take care of my business first before I go and macko other people's business? When are we going to do that? You know, there is a story that goes something like this, and I'm not a very good storyteller, so bear with me. There was this woman, this married woman, who every morning would look out her window across the yard to her neighbors, and she would see her neighbor opening up clothes every day. And to her, the clothes looked dingy, as if it was washed, but it wasn't, like the whites weren't white enough and the colors weren't bright enough. And she used to remark to her husband, somebody needs to teach this woman how to wash clothes, because her husband could not be very happy with her because he's going out, in clothes that's supposed to be clean, but it's dingy, it's not washed properly. And that went on every day, and the husband said nothing. And she would remark every day, every laundry day, she would remark, whoa, from sa pasa lave hadla lave me please sal. And one day, she came to the window and she said, "Ha! God finally heard my prayers. Somebody taught this woman how to wash clothes so that her whites are pearly white and her colors are very bright." And her husband turned to her and looked and said, "No, nobody taught her anything. I finally cleaned the windows." So here was this woman busy looking out her dirty window, casting stones and aspersions at her neighbor, while meanwhile, the fault lay with her. I'm sure we've all heard the saying, remove the log from your eye before attempting to remove the splinter from somebody else's eye. There she is. Zafe mun tout selinia sukotli. Pa même self pour lave infinitely. Finetla sal telma. Haddo akagari sal puli. Ipa jamais gadi sal. Rather than looking intrinsically within herself to see what could be done, she was busy looking outwardly and pointing the finger. But what she should have been doing was looking in a mirror and pointing that finger. So I say all of this to say, there are those of us who are rejoicing in, and some government minister's fault, by the way. It's government's fault that this little boy tried to kill his brother. It is government's fault that the mom, poor job, she might have been working at the hotel, she might have been tired, working all day, all night, trying to fend for her children, fell asleep and was not able to cast an eye on her children. It's government's fault. It's government's fault. And I'm not saying that she was a good mom or she was a bad mom. All we know is what has been reported. She fell asleep, or she was asleep, and a little boy, 5 years old, still a baby as far as I'm concerned, because my nephew's 7 and I still call him baby. I have a 5-year-old niece as well. She's still a baby. At 9, yeah, you're still a baby as well. So when you're doing these things, heaven knows, if we don't stop it now and if we don't intervene now, what's going to happen when they're 15 and 19? You know what I'm saying? Where is social services? Has social services intervened? That's what I want to know. Is the mom going to get some parenting classes? That's what I want to know. I don't really care why he did it. That's not important. What is important is that he did it and that he has to get help. America is chock full of serial killers, and at one point I was fascinated with them. What made them tick? What made them do the things that they did? One of the most prolific serial killers of all time in America is a guy called Ted Bundy. Good-looking man. Gorgeous. He was able to swindle and defraud people out of their property and get people to trust him and to do things. But this child, even as a youngster, his aunts, his family were scared of him. They thought he was weird. I think it was his sister who claimed, or his aunt who claimed, that one day she woke up and there were knives stuck all around her. And here was Ted looking at her with this smirk, like I could have killed you in your sleep and you didn't even know it. It's just like, there's something wrong with this kid. Something wrong with this kid. And why? Oh, we didn't raise him like that. That's what they said. But you had a grandfather in the house who was raising him as if he were his son. You know, because the mom had gotten pregnant as a teenager and they were trying to cover it up. It was back in those days where teenage pregnancy was a huge taboo, you know. And he used to mentally abuse this guy. And the grandmother was always angry because now she had to raise another child that she didn't intend to raise. And he was screwed up royally in the home. But nobody took responsibility for it until this guy grew up to be a sociopath. He actually claimed 30 murders before he was stopped. But the pundit said it was more like 100. But this is what it is. When we expose our children to all sorts of things, they grow up to be maladjusted, not having the social graces, not having the social aptitude, not being able to deal, not being able to being able to cope because they feel worthless, they feel useless, they feel like they have no purpose because we inculcate that in them, we drill that in them from a young age. And so when they go out and they act on the words that we say to them, I'm gonna kill you, you know, I'm gonna kill you, and they go out and you don't kill them, but they go out and kill somebody else, because that's how life is. It's a cycle. We build on the generations before us. The generations that come before us act as a foundation to us, for us. And so we build on that. So I'm gonna kill you gonna turn out to killing, actually killing, you know? And it's only a matter of time before this happens. I mean, it is already happening. 60 murders we had last year. And you know what kills me, pardon the pun, is the fact that we had this symposium, this crime symposium last year, at the 11th hour, as if we weren't aware that we were already at 50 before. We weren't aware that at 20 it was too many. We weren't aware at 30 it was too many. We weren't aware that at 40 it was too many. We waited until it was 50 to do something about it. Or to pay lip service to it, rather. Because up to now, we know nothing about what came out of that symposium. And thankfully, knock on wood, we haven't had one yet, but we could have had one on Sundays, by the grace of God, as we would say. That child didn't die. We're due for a break, but when we come back, I want to talk to you about an incident which happened a couple of weeks ago, and something that happened this past weekend, same related to this little boy chopping his brother, and the psyche and the mentality of us as St. Lucians. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned. If I break out into a fit of coughing, please excuse me. I seem to be going through this weird period. It's been really cold lately. I don't know for you in your neck of the woods, but in my neck of the woods, it's been a bit chilly lately, and I don't think my lungs can take it. And I'm not a smoker. I never have been, but I do have a mild touch of asthma. So ever so often when the temperature drops like this, or when I'm exposed to contaminants and that kind of thing, I get to this point. And if you would notice, my voice sounded a little husky there, and that's the reason why, because I've been coughing a lot lately, and I just had a little bout at the break, so bear with me. Last week I got a WhatsApp message for somebody that's pretty reliable, who is in that moves in that particular circle of the incident that I'm talking about. And then they sent me this WhatsApp message and said to me there was this particular soca artist who was found lying prone on a beach at Fiji. And I said, oh my God, is he okay? And he said, as far as he knew, the person was taken to the hospital, and they're undergoing tests, but they've resumed consciousness, and they're just testing to make sure that he is okay. And I said, oh my gosh, what happened? And he said, well, from the accounts he got is that he must have been jogging or whatever, and he hit his head on some low-lying tree branches or whatever, and I was rendered unconscious, and some guests found him and came to his assistance, came to his aid. Now, I never heard this in the media, so I'm very grateful for it, because I think a lot of the times when people are in the public eye, we forget that they need their privacy as well, that we forget to respect that privacy. And so I was very grateful for that. But I say this I bring this up because I remember at the time saying, oh wow, looking at my phone like almost every 5 minutes to see when somebody would send a picture or send something about it, you know, because it's become the norm. As you could see in the video that we showed of the girl that was being brutalized, the young woman who was being brutalized, people stood around filming and not rendering aid. They stood around filming and jeering and supporting the abuser, the bastard who was beating up this girl. And notice she never defended herself. She never stopped. She never hit him back. She just took her licks, and it's like, oh, well, you know, it's normal, you know, and just took her licks. So I was waiting for that kind of reaction, and I didn't get it, and I was like, oh wow, that we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. But that was dashed on Sunday when we got the report of the child who had slashed his brother, because the first reporting said that it was over a piece of chicken. Now, come to find out that the and I'm not even sure if that is the actual reporting of the incident, but come to find out that the kids weren't fighting over a piece of chicken. They were fighting over a chicken, a live chicken. How the little boy had told the older boy to stop chasing his chicken, leave his chicken alone, and he wouldn't listen, and so he bashed the boy or whatever. And in relating what happened to a curious onlooker, that person now took that to social media. Yeah, all those media online thingies that's just popping up all over the place, who pride themselves in getting the news before it's become news, and reported it that way. And I'm saying, here is a sad situation. Here is a situation which could have ended up tragically. And rather than commiserate with the mom, you would think to sell that news story, to a news outlet, whether it's for money or for glory or just to see your story in the paper or online. That's sad. I mean, it's beyond sad. And I remember at the time when I heard about the person who was found lying in the sand there, and I remember saying, I wonder if it were a local who had found him, whether they would have rendered aid immediately or stopped to have taken a picture, forwarded it to their friends, their cronies all over the place before. How many people would have just jumped over him and gone on their way and said, Gako ye, Kwe se tell me big shots. You know, all of those things entered my mind because that is the kind of society that we are. That is the kind of society that we are. Now, something I wanted to touch on this evening is, do we listen to our children when they speak? You know what I mean? So a child would come and say, you know, Mr. So-and-so touched me there. But this just because Mr. So-and-so can't to show and just brush them aside. How many of us do that to our children? And be honest. I can't hear your answers. So be honest with yourself. How many of you brush your children aside when they come to tell you something? Well, the latest in the Me Too, hashtag Me Too, I think it is about this Dr. Nasser, this long-time doctor for Olympians, these gymnasts, who has been sentenced to life in prison for abusing hundreds of young girls who came to him for medical help preparing for Olympics. So far, 150 victims have come forward, and over 50 more are preparing to give their testimony on how this miscreant abused them. And you know what was the most disheartening? The sickest part of it is little ones, young ones, 12, 14, 15, went to other adults whom they thought would help them, and they didn't listen. They went to their coaches, they went to the faculty. Nobody listened. They heard, but they didn't listen. They heard, but they didn't act. They heard, and they did nothing. And so now, they're just as guilty. If just by association, if just by not rendering aid, excuse me, to a minor. How many of us could have saved lives but did nothing? How many of us heard but didn't listen? How many of us were told and we didn't act? It is sad. It is beyond sad. It's disgusting. It's horrendous. It's egregious. It's callous. Words cannot begin to describe how I felt when I heard in graphic details what this man used to do to these children, and ask them if it felt good. And how he tried to weasel his way out of being so cocky as to give interviews because he thought he would never be caught. He thought he was invincible. He thought he was a demigod, untouchable. Even going so far as to show videos of him massaging and purporting to treat muscular aches and pains and cramps and the like. Can you believe it? But it happens right here. It happens all too often right here. Our children are crying out to us and we do not listen. We do not act We do nothing. We are inert. And some of us even go as far as to be abusers ourselves, to compound the situation and to say, famu fam, say pusauka disa, and I will show you fam. And there goes even more abuse in her tutut. I mean, seriously? Seriously, this is what's happening right here. So when we try to be aghast at what's happening offshore, bear in mind, it happens right here in St. Lucia. We have parents who sell the children as sex slaves because of the revenue it can bring in. Children who are too scared to say anything anymore because once they've spoken once, twice, 3 times, they got into trouble, not gonna say a word. Not gonna say a word. Speaking of children, and tonight is all about children, and the lines will be open in a little while. The lines will be open in a little while. I just want to touch on one final issue. You know, I was listening to the news, and here was Yvonne Edwin, a woman that I really admire. I really like her. She's well spoken. She is full of conviction, and she's passionate about whatever she's doing, whether it's about the turtles, or whether it's about the fisheries, whether it's about the CSA. And would you believe, there are some of us who believe that because she is the president of the CSA, her child should not be given every opportunity to excel in whatever field that he chooses. Let me tell you something, Yvonne, it shouldn't matter whether you're on the other side of the table from the government. It shouldn't matter whether you are the president of the CSA. It should not matter whether government saw something in your son and dying to offer him a scholarship. I say take it. If they offer 10 million scholarships, take it, but never let it compromise who you are and what you stand for. And forget the naysayers who think that because your son got a scholarship, that means that you were bought. Not everybody has that kind of price tag. Not everybody. I think it's despicable. I think it's sick. The way we besmirch people, the way we take their names and we tarnish it and drag it through the mud because our own can't stand up to the light. And I don't care whether the scholarship was given or was not given as a result of strings pulled or government trying to buy, or I don't care. A child is at stake. He has a skill that afforded him or awarded him a scholarship. Congratulations. Congratulations. And we want to talk about leaders who divide the people. Leaders who divide the people, where do you think they come from? Our homes, our communities, they come from right here. All of them have one thing in common. They're all St. Lucians. And so when they're leading by dividing, it's because we want to be divided. It's because we lead our homes and our communities that way. It's because we are ugly, nasty people on the inside. And we wish everybody, our bit of you know, like there are people who just don't care about themselves. There are people who just don't think much of themselves. They don't think very highly of themselves. They're miserable people. They wallow in self-pity. And because they're wallowing, and because it does not feel as good, they want to drag other people in with them because that will make them feel good. But I say to you, Yvonne, hold your head up. As long as you know you've done nothing wrong, as long as you know you have done nothing wrong, it shouldn't matter what the naysayers said. I would not even have dignified them with a response because it's ridiculous. It's almost as if you're in public service, you have a position, your life ends. You are not to aspire for yourself or for your children anymore. So it's ridiculous. We have it all. Why can't we have it all? Why can't we serve others but still look after our own interest? Why can't we do that? I know it sounds a bit oxymoronic, but yes, I can be concerned about somebody else, but still think about my own family and still think about my own well being. Because guess what? If my being is not well, how can I look after your being? I'll say it again. If my being is not well, how can I look after your being? Makes no sense. At this point, we open the lines. The number to call is 4519788, or you can send us your WhatsApp messages at 284-6536, or send us your emails at laurajepier@gmail.com. While we wait for calls, I also want to talk to you about or address. We have a call. We have our first call. Thank you. You're on the air.
Hey, good evening, Laura.
Hi, good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. This is Tufa.
Hi. Long time.
I'm good. Listen, based on this children's violence and whatever negativities that children undergo now, Laura, a lot of we young parents tend to feel that the olden days rules and regulations, restrictions are expired, should I say, old-fashioned, and manual trainings. But like you said, in our days, we learned to differentiate adults' behavior, attitude, entertainment from the children's. Okay? Now, if at this age we come to implement that on the children, first thing those in authority would say, these were the days gone. This is a modernized time. All right? So when you look at it, most of the times, those in authority they have a part to play in the children's malmanagement or negative upbringings. Okay? Before, if I walked on the street, I did not greet a lady. She would beat me. She would go to my mom and say, well, I parle dis-moi bonjour so she may. So moi bat me. If I would go and ask or tell my mother that I'll get a severe beating addition to what I was given already. Okay? Children now, they get access to internet. The television, you get nothing educational. Okay? Before anything, you'd see them taking pics. They firearm motion. They get firearms online and they put it on their profile. The law, I guess, should look into that deeper. If you have it on your profile, give a reason why you should be taken in for questioning based on that.
Because you never know if it could be a real firearm that you have and not just a picture that you picked up from somewhere else.
Most of the times, I have witnessed that it is something that they have at home. Okay, even police officers who are in homes, they leave the firearm where their children has access to it. Take pictures and post it on Facebook. The law do not look into those things. And I guess this is a call I'm pleading to authorities to look into this matter. Because there are several Facebook accounts I have gone on and I have noticed those firearms are real and those young children has possession to firearms. Okay, most crimes, especially in the South, that are taking place by children, Laura, I am not ashamed to say it, I'm not afraid to say it. Most of the crimes in the South are by children. I can never forget once I was on a mission and there was a 12-year-old, and Laura, you'd see him, you call your 9-year-old nephew a baby. But for crying out loud, this one should be called, I don't know, baby is even too high for him. And he has a .2 in his crutches. Who would ever expect a child of this age to have a firearm? And yet, you'd inform the authorities. I know XYZ. They want to know who's speaking on the other end. This is not the point.
But I thought when you called, there was a hotline that you could call to give anonymous tips. And last I checked, anonymous meant unknown. Like you're not supposed to give your identity, if that's
Well,
what it is.
like one of the ministers once said, educated, whatever, I don't think they know the real definition of anonymous, okay? And they will be the ones to go back and tell the ghetto guys, Monsieur Dimwesa, what do you expect to happen from there?
Wow.
All right. So I think, just in closing, I think that when it comes to Facebook and children, the law needs to look into that deeply. Okay? Set up a particular regime or an umbrella just to look out for those. All right? Because those pictures on Facebook means a lot. I don't know how you or others take it, but I take it very seriously.
Wow.
Whatever
I always
on
thought that those pictures were just, you went on the internet and you took a picture and you just, you manipulate it and, I never, I guess that's the naivete in me, eternal optimist. I never really thought that it was kids having those access to these guns.
Well, it is manipulative enough that they practice it. The manipulation has been practiced and exercised, and now it's at the highest levels, surpassing the capabilities of police force in St. Lucia right now.
Wow.
All right, so I guess the authorities, I know that there are many of them listening.
Yes,
I guess this is something that they
note.
need to look into.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for calling and for sharing. We appreciate
You
it.
too, bye-bye. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye. Wow, that is something. Now, just being on that point of the police, I wonder if there's anything, because we all saw the abuse taking place in that video. Somebody was asking me, can the police go in and arrest this guy, because that's abuse, and I don't think so. I think she has to press charges, and unless she doesn't press charges, nothing can happen. And I'm thinking maybe this is where constitution reform needs to come in, wherein people know that you abuse somebody and that the law can come and get you, even if the person does not doesn't want to fend for themselves, because eventually it will become a civil case. It will become a state case. It'll become, what if he continues beating her all the time and then he takes her life? Then we have another statistic. Yeah? So I really wonder about the law that says unless the person presses charges, when you could see the evidence is right there in your face. We have an email here from somebody who wants to know, wants some information about the rape of the schoolgirl. Remember last week I spoke about the young girl who, by all means, because she's underage, whatever sex act was perpetrated against her was actually considered statutory rape. The person says, I want to know what happened to the guy in the video, because with all that info out there, why are we not being informed about his fate? It is sad when things like that is everywhere, but it is sadder that this is even happening. All of that is being talked about is that to stop the sharing, but if it wasn't shared, no one would have known or do anything about it. If you want to stop the videos, then stop the rapes. Take action. When it is out, not to the one that posted, but the ones in it, because if nothing happens to him, that means you can rape, and nothing for that. Please inform me. We have another call online. Thank you for holding. You're on the air.
Yes, Laura, good night.
Good night, dear.
I've not been following your entire show for tonight, but I heard you making some comment about constitutional reform, and that sort of caught my attention. The reason for asking for constitutional reform, there are many things that constitutional reform would need to probably fix. But when it comes to, constitutional reform to hinder somebody's choice as to whether they want to press charges against another person or not, I don't think that is really making the the country a better place in terms of all the human rights that we advocating for. I mean, the law is there, and if the person feels strongly enough about it that they want something done, the law supports them on that. But persons, we are adults, and where it is not an adult, the law makes provision, for somebody responsible for that other individual to take action on their behalf. So I don't know what more we want of the law where those things are concerned. I mean,
can I ask you a question?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay, what if in this situation where a man is physically assaulting a woman or vice versa, it doesn't really matter, there are children in the union and the children are seeing that. They're don't you think that that person, by staying in the relationship, but not the person not wanting to press charges because for whatever reason, is presenting a danger to themselves and to their children?
Well, in a case like this, I think the law also provides. I mean, if you can subject minors to a violent environment, social services can always come in and make a determination as to whether that the child should remain in that kind of environment.
And if if social services deems that the environment is not suited to the child, then social services will swoop in and remove the child from the home.
Well, they are empowered to do that.
They are empowered. Now, what makes that any different? We're conversing. What makes that any different from what the Prime Minister postulated a couple of weeks ago?
Well, I don't have any quarrels on that because, I mean, I am a strong supporter of what the Prime Minister indicated. I mean, I think I have said that long before the Prime Minister even came out with that.
No.
I don't believe, people should be, whereas persons have their human rights, I don't think people should be having any number of children that they can give birth to without having the means to really care for them, because at the end of the day, it is a burden on the state.
Okay, so don't you think that the woman staying in the abusive relationship, because we showed a clip earlier of a young woman being abused, slapped about by her, I'm assuming her lover, and by not stepping in and saving her from herself, because she's going to stay in the relationship and eventually he's going to kill her. There is an implication for the rest of us.
No, but
so we should just allow her to stay, and all those NGOs that are fighting for women's rights and fighting to remove them from the abusive relationship, then the abusive environment should just pack up shop and go home.
No. I have not suggested that at all. I mean, those NGOs and other persons advocating, what they could be doing is to encourage those persons to bring the matter before the justice system.
But sometimes, you would agree though that sometimes that same justice system that you're advocating for have let them down, and that's why they stay, because ain't nothing gonna happen. I'm gonna press charges against him, he's gonna make bail, he's gonna come back and bust my skin even more, and nothing changes. So I might as well just stay there and take my licks anyway and not get more licks because I press charges.
No, but I mean, if you're going to say that a justice system has let people down and so they're not going to access the system, I mean, what is the alternative to that? At the end of the day, the system works if we allow it to work.
But the system has been given opportunities to work, and we have numerous cases of where the system doesn't work. Does Valinda Joseph ring a bell? She was preparing to go give testimony about another rape that had happened to her when she got killed.
No, but
raped and murdered brutally. That's the justice system at work for us.
No, but you talk about the justice system. I don't know which part you're talking about with respect to Valinda
all of
Joseph
it. All of it.
But you see, there are different parts to the justice system, and it starts with the individual making the complaint, and then and there's an apparatus to deal with those complaints. And
But
then
what
they would bring
happens
it before
when the complaint
before-
is made and
Sorry?
what happens when the complaint is made and the apparatus to deal with the complaint is choked, it ain't working, nothing happens?
No, but
I
but-
know of countless
well,
cases of women who have gone to the police and said, I want to, the man comes in, they talk to the person, that one have an uncle who's a police, that one, I'm not saying all police are whatever, don't get me wrong, because I'm a friend of the police. But what I'm saying is, there are a number of women who have gone that route. The men go and get off on bail, or they let them out and tell them to stay away from the woman. They come back and beat her up, they black and blue her more.
Laura, we need
nothing
to be,
changed.
We need to be careful with those statements, because you see, people say they repeat a lot of things that they hear without getting the other side. And I mean,
So you know what side I never want to hear? You know what side I never want to hear though? I never want to hear the side that justifies beating another human being. Whether it's by the male on female, female on male, female on female, male on male, I don't care. I never want to hear the side that justifies the abuse of another human being.
That point you just made about people making complaints to the police, I just want to address that, because a lot of the times, people, they will go to the police and they will make a complaint, but then they will tell the police in no uncertain terms, I don't want to go to court. Now the police...
Do you blame them?
Hold on. Who are you going to blame? The police? The police is there to bring matters before the court. Bring all of this.
Is the police the
evidence
only
before-
apparatus, like you would say, with that has to effect that justice that we want to see? No, and by no means am I saying the police is at fault, because oftentimes you would find the police doing everything in their power to take a case to court, and then the judge doesn't show up, or the magistrate doesn't show up, the DPP doesn't show up, the witness doesn't show up, that this one don't show up. All kinds of activities are engaged to thwart. But what I'm saying is...
I said some time ago that we needed some education on the Constitution, and persons had all sorts of things to say about that. And you see this whole justice system that people are talking about and how it works and does not work. I think there really needs to be education on that, so people understand what the system is and how it is set up to work. Because I think there's a lot of misconception where that is concerned.
There may be a lot of misconception where that is concerned, but I think the misconception or the perception that exists is as a result of person's own experiences. I remember one time I had a case, separate and apart from abuse, because no man is going to think about raising his hand on me. I am so sorry. There are some women like myself that are just not going to stand for that. I will never stay in a relationship, and mark my words on that. And this is one time I will say never. Stay in a relationship where a man is abusing me. I am sorry. I have a father who loves me. I know what love is. So I will not stay. But however, there was a time where I had to go to court. I went up and down to court for months. Is on one adjournment after another, and eventually, imagine it took so long. I ended up having to leave the country, and I finally had to put my foot down and say, I am sorry. I am not going to let the matter go. I deserve justice, but this nonsense of taking time off from work every other month to go to court that never ends. Your case is called last only to say it is being adjourned. I mean, that is ridiculous. So I can understand why somebody would say, I don't want to go to court. Because it is time consuming, it is financially draining. Because every time you miss work, you lose out. I'm sorry we lost this caller. But I really wish we could engage him some more, because it's ridiculous. So when he says, yes, there may be a misconception. Maybe there may be a bad perception of what the justice system is and how it's supposed to work. But people develop their perceptions based on their own experiences. We have another call online. Thank you. You're on the air.
Good night to you, Miss Laura.
Good night, dear.
All I have to say, woman in a march, Give us room, let us pass. Have a good night, women.
Thank you for calling and for sharing. We have an email here. Happy New Year, Laura. Please ask, well, that's from a previous show. That was last week's show. Please, do we have a call? You're on the air.
Laura, I don't know what happened. I
I
seem
don't
to have,
Yeah.
the call seemed to have dropped. But I was saying, with the list of matters that the court would have to deal with, obviously some will linger, and some would have to
The
be called.
magistrate, sir, must have seen the number of times a case is adjourned to say, hell to the no, we're proceeding whether or not this one is not there. You understand what I'm saying?
And I'm sure there are times when the magistrate try to do that, but I'm sure in all of the adjournments that you would have had, there would have been various reasons for those adjournments, and I don't think.
Let me tell you something. Your lawyer not there, not my business, because I am here and you are here. Let's proceed. You understand what I'm saying? You not coming, that not my business. Let us proceed. The prosecutor that didn't come with his notebook. What? The prosecuting officer didn't come with his notebook.
But
that
how
is
many
not
times
an excuse.
did that happen? And you spoke about the lawyer not being there and it's not your business, but the magistrate also has the responsibility of taking care of the other party. And if the lawyer is before a higher court, the magistrate does not have the authority to go ahead with the matter in that lawyer's absence, because the lawyer is before a superior court.
Fair enough.
And it's all of those
Fair
things,
enough, but
that can cause matters to
fair
delay.
enough, but don't you think it's a bit disrespectful? You know you in a higher court. You're not sending to say, magistrate, your honor, however they call them, I will not be there, so that the officer in charge can call the parties and say, your case will not be heard, because only on the day of the case you know that you were supposed to be somewhere else at the same time. Bullocks, I don't buy that.
No, but the parties,
We'll come again.
The parties would still need to be present to get the new dates, and these are some of the.
If the lawyer says enough early enough in advance, I don't see why not that the administration arm of the court cannot set a date outside of leaving work. You know how much it costs you every time you have to leave work to come to court, to sit there and watch people. And as a matter of fact, you're not sitting, you're outside like a common criminal. People passing, seeing you, enough embarrassment to you because you stand up outside, like a common criminal waiting for a case to be heard. I mean, seriously. And sometimes the sucker who is the other party in the case, damn well his lawyer is not going. He doesn't even show up. That's what irks me. It's not like the lawyer never show up and he didn't know. He never show up himself because he know his lawyer is not going to come.
Yeah.
There should be a better
in
management
cases,
system of the courts, is what I'm saying.
In those cases, I agree that if persons the information comes out early enough, maybe there can be,
and there should be a penalty if you send last minute, because you cannot be a lawyer and not know. Come on.
To guard against the other parties coming to waste time at the court, but a lot of the times, when matters are adjourned for supposedly a long period of time, it's not necessarily the fault of the magistrate that it happens, because the magistrate comes to sit, but the court has its own administration, and they would put the matters together for that magistrate to sit on that particular day.
Sometimes you have to just take the court to task itself, because it's ridiculous. I experienced that, and I never want to have to experience that again. I try my best, whatever happens, never to go to court, because that took a toll on me. Imagine your first time, you're in your early 20s, your first time going to court, you don't know what to expect, your heart is racing every time like that. There's some sort of anxiety because you have to go to court. You go into court, you're taking the time off, you're calming yourself down, you pulling other people out of work with you because you need the moral support. You're getting there, and some kiss-me-ass magistrate or some kiss-me-ass lawyer or somebody's going to tell you they didn't come. They didn't come to court. They didn't forget their notebook. The lawyer didn't know. you know, it's really not. I try not to go to court at all. Not even for jury duty would I even want to go to court. I don't want to go because that experience was a lasting one, first and last, and never again.
No, but I'm sure the same frustration that you experience in, everybody else, including the magistrate, the police,
well,
they're
you know what?
experiencing it too.
You know what?
I mean,
and on the flip side, imagine, I mean, I went to court with just as a supporter, a girl, a young woman who was being abused. And up and down, eventually I had to tell her, honey, I love you, but I can't do this. You know what I mean? Just to come and give her a little support. I can't do it. Each time like that, you taking, not only you taking time off from work, she taking time off, the boss taking time off from work, you come in there and what? And you never get resolution. Up to now, that case is in the court.
There are also instances where matters have been dealt with in record time, and so that needs to be highlighted too.
Yes, in record time, and you ask yourself, what did they do for their case to be heard so fast? I want to do it too. You know what I'm saying?
Well, sometimes it just happens. I mean, you have situations where persons decide they would go to court and just accept the responsibility, and then the matter does not have to go through a full trial, and so you get speedy resolution. I mean, but with the court system, there is what you call the case management. So the matter would be called a couple of times, probably, so that they ensure that everything is in order and ready to go. But there is still a period of time to guide the court, a period of 6 months within which the matter should at least commence, and that is just the what it is.
Well, you raised some good points there, but I'm just saying you have to be in the shoes of the affected party to understand why they say I ain't going to court. I am not going to court. We should never advise or encourage persons or discourage them from going to court, because that is what we have to deal with all of the situations that we have to arrest all of the violence and so on. And so people need to be encouraged to go before the court. I mean, there's also the in order to speed up some of those things, they have the system where you go through mediation. And the court don't get me on the mediation. Because until I had enough, I can see my travel date is looming and nothing is being happening, and I heard another adjournment. I stood up, and then the magistrate is asking me what I want him to do. A lawyer stood up and said, mediation? I mean, sometimes you wonder about the magistrates themselves, because that was the response I got. What do you want me to do? And a lawyer who I guess he comes to court just on any regular old day just to mediate cases, said mediation. And so the lawyer went, the magistrate went, who do you propose? And he says, I'm right here. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So sometimes there are all of these. It's very
effective, because what it does is allow the parties to, understand that they have probably wrong the other, and to agree as to what should happen where that is concerned, and then it goes back to the court where it is enforced by the court. So it's not. But
sometimes the mediation can be a long, drawn-out process. Because in my case, I ended up in mediation, and it was I almost wish I was back in court, because the affected persons, one person always wants to get maximum, and the other person always wants to get the payoff. Always has to be the least amount that they can pay, or be as least affected as possible. But anyway, I want to thank you for calling and for sharing. But I'm getting messages on there that other people want to make contributions.
No problem. Well, have a good night.
But thank you so much. Absolutely, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. So. I mean, it sounds like a cop. But, I want to read this message, and I think we're all out of time, but permit me to read this. And I know my guest of last week is listening, so he will hear this message. It's for my guest last week. Please ask your guests if there is a provision for persons who want to join the force but don't have the required 5 CXCs, because we know that there are persons who are not book smart but are street smart, meaning they messed up their opportunity at school to perform well, but they have the attitude and characteristics to be a police officer. Also, in my personal opinion, I wonder if some officers do have the required CXC English because of their bad vocabulary and pronunciation. English is the main language of our island, and it saddens me to listen to officers, especially the high-ranking ones, speak on TV so badly and pronounce words so badly, I have to wonder at times what they are saying. Now, here's my 2 cents on the not having the 5 CXs. You ain't gonna go nowhere and be a police officer without your minimum requirements. And if it means so much to you to become a police officer and you have all the street smarts, then you must have the passion, you must have the commitment to study hard and get those 5 CXCs. It's a basic requirement. I would not be in favor because, as you say, some of them have the 5 CXCs, and bon Dieu, you are right. You have to ask yourself. So imagine the ones that don't have the 5 CXCs. And unfortunately, we don't have a remedial course where you can say, okay, you didn't do well in a remedial program, rather. You didn't do well in mainstream school, but you can go through that program and get an equivalent of what the Americans call the GEDs. So we don't have that, but you can write your CXCs as a private citizen. I know people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who write CXCs. So if you are determined, you're a young person, you squandered your opportunity at school, unfortunately, but you are now determined to make something of yourself, studying for 5 CXCs is a piece of cake, a walk in the park. Very little to sacrifice, and I put that in inverted commas, to become a police officer. That's my take on it. I don't know what Officer Shiko would say, but I'm sure he'll give me a call a little later on and give me his take on it. But this is my take on the whole thing. Do we have any more time? Okay. We have one more message that I want to relate to Mr. Shiko. I know he's listening. Good night. My question is, the police officers who have retired years gone by and their pensions are not up to par, doesn't Mr. Shiko feel that they should include the retirees when negotiating for salaries? I don't know how that works, but I'm certain Officer Shiko will give me a call and I can maybe address that next week. After being served 20 plus years in the force, I feel that their pensions should be renegotiated. I don't know how pensions are negotiated. I'm not sure that you can negotiate your pension after it has taken effect. But again, I will find out some more on that and we can talk about it. WhatsApp here says, a magistrate told me that you should never miss your hearing even though it will be adjourned. Absenteeism is immediate imprisonment. The defendant should never miss their hearing even though the case will be adjourned because absenteeism is immediate imprisonment. Something like that. And we can't go through all of the messages at this point because we spent so much time with this last caller. But it was interesting conversation. It was an interesting discourse. And maybe one day I should bring in somebody from the courts on board and have a little chat because he is right to a certain extent. There's a lot of misconception where the Constitution is concerned and what we can expect of the Constitution. And it's so easy to put it in a catch-all phrase, in a bag and say, oh, Constitution reform will take care of everything. But oftentimes it is not so. I want to leave you with the quotes that I began with. I want to leave you with that. An eye for an eye will only make the whole world blind. Violence is the last resort of the incompetent. Those who make peaceful resolution impossible will make violent resolution inevitable. Poverty is the worst form of violence. St. Lucians, please take care of yourselves and each other. Look out for especially the vulnerable and those amongst us who are less able to take care of themselves, the children, the elderly. Let's be each other's keeper. And in this regard, let's go back to the olden days when we looked out for each other. Not the abuse where we feel that we have to beat a child into submission, beat a child to discipline the child, because that is violence. You know, we clamor for corporal punishment back in schools, but that is violence. It only serves to teach a child that you can only resolve your issues through violence. And that can never, ever be the answer. Until then, adieu.
You